Take a look at faith, for example. Nowhere else in life is faith acceptable except for in religious beliefs. And Sam Harris made a wonderful point in a debate that he had when talking about, let's say that these people who believe that Elvis is still alive. And what if you gave the same answers that religious people do for that belief? If I said that Elvis was still alive because it gives my life a lot of meaning, or it makes me happy, or Elvis is a great moral teacher, or I wouldn't want to live in a world where Elvis wasn't still alive. Or it just takes faith. You just have to believe that Elvis is still alive, and he is. You would be laughed at. And yet, for some reason, when you do that with religious thinking, it's perfectly acceptable. Also, the burden of proof everywhere except for religion, where your beliefs are walled off, is on the side of the null hypothesis, in the sense of it is for atheism. What evidence is there? You have the burden of proof everywhere. You apply the null hypothesis in every aspect of your life except for religion. And extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. The belief that there is an all-knowing, all-powerful, supernatural God that cares about you and loves you and cares where you put your penis, that's one of the most extraordinary claims that somebody can make. And therefore it should require the most evidence out of any claim one could make. So to make the argument for faith on the most extraordinary claim one can make is completely counterintuitive. You could argue, and in fact the proper argument would be, that if there is anything that you should not take on faith, it is the most extraordinary claims. It is the claims of religion. So applying faith there is applying faith when you absolutely should not. Yet, in our society and in our lives, it's the one area which it is frequently applied. Another reason is that there's nothing in the Bible that couldn't have been known by illiterate goat herders 2,000 years ago. There's not one mention of antibiotics. If God wanted to prove his existence, he could have simply drawn an atomic symbol for hydrogen or any of the elements with the electron orbitals. Did he do that? No. He could have written a scientific equation that couldn't have been known at the time. E equals mc squared would suffice. Those, 5 characters would have been enough to convince most people of the belief of God, because there's no way it could have been known at that time. Yet, God, who had access to all this knowledge because he's omniscient, chose not to put it in. And people wonder why we don't believe. I realize that despite the infinite number of ways that an all-knowing God could choose to provide evidence of his existence, he chose to do none of them. And this led me to the conclusion that either A, God does not exist, or B, he does exist, but simply created matter and stepped back and doesn't care about us. Either way, Christianity is out. People don't really understand, though, this concept of actually requiring evidence to believe in something. And there's a quote that I like to use that I find to be particularly effective, and that is that you and I are both atheists with respect to the vast majority of gods mankind has ever invented. When you understand why you reject all the others, you'll understand why I reject yours. So I call myself an agnostic. And then I sort of realized that what else am I agnostic about? I'm not agnostic with respect to invisible teacups orbiting around the sun or the existence of pink unicorns. I don't believe in pink unicorns. Show me a pink unicorn and I will believe. But I'm not agnostic about it. And I felt that upon really thinking about it with myself, I realized that I was using the term agnostic as an intellectual cop-out. And that I really didn't want to call myself an atheist because, well, let's face it, being an atheist in the South is difficult. So I said basically that's it. I'm an atheist, which is the default position. The null hypothesis. It's a position that everybody should start out as and require evidence to change. But for some reason, people don't understand this, and it's astonishing. Whenever I'm talking to religious people, I find that maybe 5% of the time they get it right. So ask them, next time you're in a religious discussion, why people think you're an atheist. And most of the time you'll get some answer like, oh, you're an atheist because you hate God, or you think that you're better than God and you want to live your life how you want to. But no, I don't believe in God, so how can I fear something that I don't believe exists? It's like saying that you're not a flying spaghetti monsterist because you don't want to have to accept the fact of his noodly greatness. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's a non-starter. Another piece of, or another example rather, that people just can't understand this, why I don't believe in God or why people don't believe in God. It said a YouTube user recently demanded that I answer the following question. And that is that, what evidence do you have that atheism is true and correct? Well, the simple fact is that that question is the same as asking, what evidence do you have that believing that my magical sandwich can't cure cancer is true and correct? You see, it's not up to me to supply the evidence. My position is a default one. My side has a flawless track record, and yours has yet to win a battle. So the fact of the matter is, if you did your job, Shock, and provided some evidence that could not be categorized as ridiculous, you might win some converts. But I doubt that you're capable of doing so. So, that's it. I'm an atheist. An image that I found sums up my position rather well, and it's that I'm an atheist. I'm not an atheist because it's cool. I'm not an atheist because of religious extremism. I'm not an atheist because I think evil can exist in a world with, world with God. And I'm not an atheist because I think science can disprove God. I'm an atheist because of one simple fact, and that's that the burden of proof lies on religion, and until you supply any sort of evidence, I have no reason to listen to you. It's not up to you to disprove my magic sandwich. It's up to me to prove it. And no one's come close. But this is one key difference that I've found between believers and non-believers. And this is a generalization, of course, but I've found it to be a common theme. And that if you ask a diehard Christian what it would take to convince them that God didn't exist, 99% of the time, the answer will be nothing. There is nothing you could show them, no piece of evidence that you could possibly show them to change their view of God. Atheists, on the other hand, and non-believers tend to have a different answer, a very different answer, and that is evidence. Show us the slightest bit of evidence, and we'll change. Our views are permeable to reason. Our views are permeable to evidence. The other side is not. So, until then, if God does exist and He really cares about my salvation, He knows what it takes to change my mind, and that's evidence. He has the power to do it, and He knows where to find me. So, the ball is in His court. Thank you very much for your time, guys, and I hope that this answers your question. Take care.